Hi there. This video is supposed to come out in July. It's now 5 months late because of a failure of a human being who has no idea how to prioritize his time. I've often considered canceling this video entirely, but the amount of work I've put in is now too much to even consider not releasing it. So it's 5 months late, but enjoy.
Back in the late 70s and early 80s, arcades were everywhere in America. With a handful of quarters, kids and young adults could enjoy hours of fun. In 1981, the arcade gaming market in the US made $4.8 billion. That's a lot of money in 1981. Hell, that's a lot of money now. Today, that's equal to about $12 billion. However, with the growth of home consoles in the 90s, a lot of arcades started to fade away. There was no reason to go spend a couple bucks playing Street Fighter 2 at the arcade when you could simply stay home and play Street Fighter 2 on your Sega Genesis.
Arcades are kind of hard to come by nowadays. They're mostly a West Coast commodity. But I've always wanted to do an arcade episode on arcade games. This will be kind of difficult, however, as I live in the South. So that's why I decided to go to DisneyQuest. DisneyQuest was a failed project from the early 90s, but it is still arguably one of the largest collection of arcade games in the South.
Now you may be thinking to yourself, hey man, what's a DisneyQuest? That actually wouldn't be that surprising if you hadn't heard of it before. DisneyQuest was an idea first thought of in 1995. Disney was looking to expand into several different cities, but wasn't sure that full-size Disney parks would garner enough attendance or profit until much later in their lifetime. They instead came up with a new idea, an indoor theme park planned for several cities in America, a place known as DisneyQuest. Say you live in a place like Texas and couldn't handle a 1,300-mile drive to Disney World Orlando. You would have instead just gone to the DisneyQuest in your state to enjoy 5 floors of fun rides, games, and interactive exhibits. So what happened to DisneyQuest? Well, there were originally 2 locations, one in Orlando and a second one in Chicago. The one in Chicago is meant to be the testing ground for the DisneyQuest concept as a whole. Long story short, it didn't work out. I'm not going to delve deep into the history of DisneyQuest, so instead here's a clip from Bright Sun Films, who made a phenomenal video on it that you should totally check out.
Things were slow at the facility, and despite its central location in the city, DisneyQuest Chicago was struggling. As 1999 progressed into 2000, attendance wasn't getting any better for the complex, and clearly DisneyQuest Chicago was not working the way they wanted it to. The complex in downtown Disney kinda worked because it just added to the resort, but something like this in a major city just didn't. So by this time, Disney had officially announced that all of the planned DisneyQuest future locations had now been officially cancelled.
Even though the Chicago DisneyQuest closed, the Orlando DisneyQuest continued operating until July 2nd, 2017, when it finally shut down. So let's take a look inside and see what there is to offer. This looks really 90s, doesn't it? I mean, look, the Mighty Ducks are part of this pillar entrance. When's the last time the Mighty Ducks were even relevant? Hell, half the people watching this probably don't even know who the Mighty Ducks are.
6 hockey-playing ducks appear out of nowhere, and suddenly 6 vigilantes in comic book getup start showing up whenever there's trouble.
Yes, this was a real show. A show about anthropomorphic alien ducks that play hockey that are also vigilantes that fight a wizard. I'm not making this up. The interior hasn't changed since the place opened like 21 years ago. It's actually really sad. It's like stepping right back into the 90s, though I'm not sure why anyone would want to do that. The elevator for DisneyQuest automatically pops you out on the 3rd floor, which is where we are now. It's kind of like the central hub area, where you can visit these different zones. There's Score Zone, Create Zone, Adventure Zone, and Replay Zone. Naturally, I started out in the Replay Zone. Replay Zone is packed to the brim with classic arcade titles such as Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Dig Dug, Mr. Do, Donkey Kong Jr., Spy Hunter, and of course, Gorf.
I gotta have a good meal.
Hey guys, welcome back to another radical episode of Gamer Facts. Did you know that Mario's first game was actually Donkey Kong? Except his name wasn't Mario, his name was Jumpman.
Mamma mia!
Whoa, dude! Did you also know that in Pokemon there's only ever one bedroom in the house? Which means your mom sleeps in the kitchen. If you found this interesting, go ahead and like, favorite, and subscribe, dude! Oh yeah! I'm sorry.
One of the last surviving rides at DisneyQuest is also in this room, Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blaster. It's like a bumper cars kind of ride, but you have to drive over these little foam balls and launch them at your opponent's cars.
How you feel?
I don't know. I wasn't actually listening to what he said, so I don't know.
You dummy!
When you get hit by a ball, it sounds like a freaking cannon. It's terrifying.
How you feel, boss?
I feel uncomfortable.
In the next room, we have even more arcade machines, and of course, Skee-Ball. Because it wouldn't be an arcade without Skee-Ball, duh.
Good God, I'm the worst.
In the background here, you can kind of see the Mighty Ducks pinball game. It's a game where you and 7 other players had to rock on these control pads to move different parts of the pinball machine. I was gonna get a closer look, but the minute I got even remotely close, the machine broke down. So, sorry about that. This room is actually home to one of my favorite arcade games, Star Wars Pod Racing. Now, you know I gotta say it. Now this is Pod Racing! Over here, you can see the remains of one of the VR experiences at DisneyQuest, a little thing called Ride the Comics. The art for this ride was done by Travis Charest, who currently works on the comics Space Girl. In Ride the Comics, 8 people would go head-to-head in the virtual reality comic book world. It doesn't seem super interesting now, but this was pretty impressive back in the day. Here's the 4th floor, the Score Zone. This floor has games more focused on, you guessed it, racking up scores. It's basically games that should be giving out tickets, but Disney disabled that ability since DisneyQuest doesn't have a ticket redemption center or anything like that. I will say some of the most bizarre games I've ever seen were on this floor, like a Skylanders arcade game.
I'm good.
And this giant Tetris machine. And also, whatever this is.
Game is so loud and obnoxious.
But the next room held the most beautiful sight I have ever seen. 5 Fix-It Felix machines. Oh yeah, baby. This is it. My entire life has been leading up to this moment. I'm finally gonna be able to play a Fix-It Felix machine. Oh man. Wait a second. It doesn't work. The joystick is busted. These are all broken! Getting a little out of order here, we actually went down to level 2 next, the Create Zone. You know, it's good to see that Santa Claus was able to make it out to DisneyQuest one last time before they closed. That just warms my heart. On this floor, there's the Radio Disney Songmaker and the Artist Studio where kids can learn to draw Mickey. This area is more for smaller children, which is why it's so surprising to me that they have this terrifying giant Pinocchio head busting through the wall. Also on this floor is the Toy Story Create-A-Toy, where you can make horrible godless abominations to further your life of sin. Arguably the most interesting thing on this floor is Cyberspace Mountain, where you can make and ride your own roller coaster. This whole thing is run by Bill Nye the Science Guy, as he guides you through the coaster making process. I wasn't allowed to record me riding the coaster I made, but the simulation of it was pretty impressive for a machine built in 1998. However, the seat that locks you into place crushed my thighs. It was so tight that I started to lose circulation in my legs. Right outside the Create Zone is Genie's Magic Carpet Ride, which is a virtual reality experience. I didn't write it, and you're not missing much. It looks exactly how you think VR in 1998 looked. From here, we went on up to floor 5, where all the pinball machines were located. There was some odd stuff, like this Mega Man arcade game, but as a whole, the floor was nothing special. It did have a fantastic view of the Buzz Lightyear ride though. This is where our Disney Quest journey ends, and to be honest, it was pretty disappointing.
Now, if you've been paying attention, you may have noticed that we never made it down to Floor 1. Floor 1 is where the Virtual Jungle Cruise and the Pirates of the Caribbean rides were at. We didn't go down to Floor 1 because nothing was working on Floor 1. And that kind of brings us to the central theme of Disney Quest: malfunction.
Over half the stuff at Disney Quest just straight up did not work. The skee-ball machine wasn't keeping score properly, the Mighty Ducks pinball game broke down after 15 minutes of use, the Star Wars Pod Racer refused to give me boosts, all 5 Fix-It Felix machines were broken, and not a single pinball machine on Floor 5 was working properly. Even the one I was playing broke down while I was playing it.
The ball was stuck in there somewhere.
The Create Zone area runs entirely on compact computers, a company that hasn't existed in 15 years. The Toy Story Create-A-Toy used a joystick instead of a mouse, and it just wigged out all over the place despite the fact that the joystick was completely still. The building was so dark it made filming beyond difficult. Everything looks grainy and washed out.
Look, it's hard running an arcade. Believe me, I know, I'm running this one into the ground. But the thing about a place like this is that it costs a lot of money to keep this place running. You have to pay to have the machines fixed, you have to pay somebody to come clean the place, you have to pay people to run the rides, you have to pay to advertise it. But the thing that really burns me out is the fact that the place has not been updated since the release of Wreck-It Ralph like 5 years ago. I hadn't been to DisneyQuest since I was about 13 or 14 years old, and nothing had really changed since I'd been then. There's an old phrase, you gotta spend money to make money. DisneyQuest wasn't really making any money for Disney, so they were unwilling to put any more money into it. But hey guys, you don't think you could have spent a little bit of money to update the place? A whole new change of scenery could bring a whole new wave of people in. What's the point in going to a building if it looks exactly the same on the inside and outside that it did 10 years ago? I know that you guys can't use any Marvel properties because of the stipulations of the contract with Universal, but you are telling me that you couldn't put anything Star Wars in there at all? Think of the technology that we have now. The VR, the holograms. You could have made a VR Star Wars experience that you can only experience at DisneyQuest. Something like a lightsaber battle with Darth Vader or something like that in place of the ride of the comics. I mean, good God, you have your hands on properties like The Little Mermaid, Lilo and Stitch, Alice in Wonderland, and literally none of them are represented in there. It blows my mind. You're running an arcade. You are running an arcade! You have your hands on Tron, and the only thing in the entire building is 2 Tron machines! That's it! You could have modeled the entire place after Flynn's arcade, but you didn't! There is stuff staring you right in the face that you didn't even tap into! This just blows my mind that you would let a place like this go to waste. Basically, the point I'm trying to get to is that Disney let this place die. They were unwilling to put any more money into it, so it stayed the same throughout time. There was no reason for anyone that had been once to go back ever again. It's really disappointing to see something like this go to complete waste.
Will we see a future project from Disney that taps into the potential that DisneyQuest had? I have my doubts, but maybe they'll surprise me. I personally don't think that the NBA experience is going to pan out in the long run. All I can really say at the end of the day is, rest in peace, DisneyQuest. You certainly deserved better.